So, Sarah, what did we talk about in this episode?
We talked about my identities for one, where I'm from, and then we talked about like how Colorado is different from California, the unique things about it, and also with friendships and how making friends is different from undergrad, living on campus versus grad school and afterwards, and just how to make friends after college and what you can do to help with that and to develop close, deep friendships.
Yeah, I think a key takeaway is always reach out to those people if they interest us, and we will see instead of guessing, and define the relationship is kind of
define the friendship.
Yeah, definitely. So listeners, let's keep on listening. Cool.
Welcome to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert. In this podcast, I cover underrepresented and personal stories. Join me with a cup of chai and take a listen.
All right, before we start, anything you want to ask me?
I don't think so.
All right, so should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Welcome back to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert. Today we have a special guest. She originally is from Southern California, but she moved to Denver, Colorado, and then we met at school and we just studied together, and it has been a fun time. And she moved from California just for her graduate studies, and then she has a master's degree in higher education now, and she loves musicals, Disney, and Pokeballs. And we once made boba at our house as well. So let's welcome Sara.
Thank you, Ping, for having me today. It's great to be on your show.
Are you nervous?
A little.
I'll give you some time to catch your breath, but I just want to promote my my podcast. If listeners, you like our episodes and our show, please do subscribe, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and also you can go to your Apple Podcast and give us some comments and stars. Let us know how you think. So, all right, Sarah, today our topic is about, moving places around in the US. And I think from California to Colorado is really different. And even though you're not like an international immigrant, but I still want to interview you because, a local migration can seem very, very different, especially like a huge country like in the US. So can you share a little bit about your background and identities with us?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Caucasian, grew up in Southern California in a suburb called Claremont, which is about an hour east of LA. So grew up there. My parents are from Southern California. My dad grew up in Pasadena, California, and my mom in the LA area. And my ancestors have immigrated to the US since the 1600s. So I had like a different European bloods and like a mix.
But do you know where did they move from?
Yeah, so I know for sure I have French, German, and English. So I think there's some migration there. I know my mom's side has like Scottish, I think maybe Irish. Like there's so much more, potentially Jewish actually, but we're not 100% sure and everything. But yeah, I mean, even though I'm American, I feel like I definitely has like German, French, and English. And I remember doing like a project about that background, being German and everything. And so I think a lot of them came to the East Coast and then they just migrated from the Midwest. Like both of my parents' sides are from the Midwest and then they migrated to California. We have some family in other states too, but majority are in California.
I know that your last name is pretty special. Like, do you know how you got that last name?
Good question.
Are you guys from a Christian family?
I believe so. I believe my last name's German.
Okay.
From what I've heard. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the meaning exactly. It's like it's great.
Yeah.
Not. Since they came to the United States, like, I mean, I'm guessing they were Christian too and settled here. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I believe my last name is German. I definitely don't want to change my last name when I get married, or if someone else has a cool last name to hyphenate it. But yeah, I don't want to like change it to a common last name if a person has that. So
That is so interesting because you say if some like your future husband has a cool name, then you will hyphenate your last name.
yeah,
I'm like, what kind of names are cool and what are not cool?
I know, right? Or like what's not like I guess a name that's not super common. Like I don't want to adopt a common last name.
Got it, like a Smith
Yes,
or
a Jones.
a Jones. Yeah. Ah, got it. Okay. Yeah, do you know it's a special thing that Americans or Europeans they adopt their husbands' names because
Mhm.
in at least in Taiwanese culture or Chinese culture that we don't do that anymore. So my
Oh,
grandparents' generation, they still sometimes do that, but not all the people. I don't know why, but maybe it's just how the names consist each other and maybe they just don't want to go for that hustle. So it's rare that people kind of have their husband's name on top of theirs.
that's interesting. That's an American thing or
Yeah.
European thing. Like I didn't know that because I thought, oh, like I thought everyone does that and
And
everything.
yeah, and that's interesting because like from Asia's perspective, you guys like I don't know, for Americans, we usually Taiwanese will consider Americans are more progressive, but then you guys are still taking that. Oh, and also one thing to add is that when Chinese people are adding the husband's last name, they add on top of their own last name. They never remove their last names, so they kind of add another one. So, for example, I'm a Ping Huang Robert. So
Mm.
I don't remove my Huang as my last name. It's just like I add one.
Oh,
Um,
like a middle name.
yeah, something like that. So my name becomes very long because I have a given name. So that's just a little background
Hmm.
there. Yeah.
Interesting facts. Yay.
And then I know that you grew up in California and then you love like international cuisine. Like you love boba, you love poke bowl. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like poke bowls. Pizza used to be my favorite food actually,
Yeah.
but then when I learned about poke bowls in California, I think it started when I went to Cal State Fullerton, which is a
Uh-huh.
four-year university in California.
Mhm.
I learned about poke and tried it, which is like raw fish, raw sushi, and I
Yeah.
really loved it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really picky in Colorado
Mhm.
with poke out here because it's not near an ocean, and
Okay.
sometimes the portions aren't as large either, or
Mhm.
avocado is extra. Like there's some poke places in California where it might be extra there, but there's many that are not extra for avocado to pay for.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I like one particular poke place. I guess shameless plug at the South Glen Mall called Poke
Okay.
Story.
Poke
Um,
stories. Yeah,
yeah,
we'll put that in the episode notes.
I feel like their fish is really fresh because I'm picky about that too with the fish being fresh and
Oh,
stuff.
okay. Yeah.
Um, and then with boba, yeah, my friend who's also my roommate, we've been friends since high school.
Yeah.
So we would sometimes get boba after, but I feel like I got more of the slushies. I wasn't into the actual milk teas until like I went to Cal State Fullerton. So I love milk tea, but I'm actually not like I don't like the boba part usually unless it's like brown sugar boba
Okay.
because I just don't like chewing and drinking at the same time for some reason.
That is so
Um,
cool.
yeah.
It's like I heard a lot of people talking about like eating and drinking together, but like you like boba. However, wait, then so what do you usually order?
For at a
If not
boba place
boba.
at a
Yeah.
boba place. So like I'll just get like a milk tea some usually and just get no boba with it.
Okay.
Or sometimes I think it's at Kung Fu Tea they have like a brown sugar milk tea or something or
Yes.
so I like the brown sugar bobas because like it's sugary
Okay.
and sweet and it tastes good. So I just don't like it
Oh,
plain.
yeah. Got it. Okay. What do you think about the boba we made at home?
Your boba's great.
I was just like, yeah, I did soak in a lot of sugar.
Yeah, I think that's what made it taste good is the sugar part.
Got it. So it's like it's interesting because so it's not about eating and drinking part only. It's about the taste of boba. If
Yes.
it tastes nothing, then it's not really great. But if it's
Yeah.
sugary, sweet, then you will like it more.
Yeah, I think texture is a big thing too because I don't like mashed potatoes, for example,
Okay,
or
too mushy.
yams.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't like it things soft and like yeah, like it's like a texture thing too. I feel like also.
Yeah. Do you like burritos because they usually have mashed beans?
I eat them sometimes, but no, like I'm like a quesadilla person.
Ah, me too.
But
Yeah.
I do love like my friend I made enchiladas recently because she has a Mexican background and they were so
Okay.
good. It's hard to find good Mexican food here too.
Yeah.
So
How come? I know it's like one third of people are Hispanic.
that's true. I don't know. I think you have to go to Aurora. Like I think where I'm at, it's
Yeah,
there's not as many.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think because like it just depends on the type of Mexican food it seems because in
Uh-huh.
California we have, like Spanish rice, for example.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
like Tex-Mex food, which is different
Oh, yeah,
from what
yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard. So I like the California type, I guess, too and
Got
stuff.
it. Yeah. So you already talked about some differences between California and Colorado, even these two states start with a C.
Yeah,
So
right.
what are some of the other examples or stories that you feel are differences between these two states?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple things I thought about too. I know there's like other things about like I guess like how it's different, but a fun fact is my family and I we almost moved to Colorado in 2006. Yeah, we've always visited the state. Um, and at the time, my dad, who was a teacher, was looking for teaching jobs, and so we were out there when I was in sixth grade. I was going to be in middle school, visiting schools for him and for me in Broomfield, which at the time Broomfield was much cheaper than it is now. Um, and one thing I was shocked, like I was surprised by, is that the schools we visited were mostly white students. Even though I grew up in Claremont, which is a suburb and is majority white, it was still very different. Like I went to K through 12 schools in Claremont, California, and it was pretty diverse. I feel like I interacted with different people. Even in high school, had like friends from diverse backgrounds. So I was like used to that and being around different people, but just being in Claremont's a suburb, but just being looking at these schools in Broomfield, I was like really surprised and shocked that it was all white students. And then I think with that, I assume that well, the suburbs, it makes sense. They're mostly white, but I guess I was also shocked when I came here for grad school because I assumed Denver was really diverse. And I was shocked how that also wasn't the case. And there are parts of Denver that are like if you go to downtown or even my neighborhood has diversity. But I was surprised that many parts of Denver, compared like the East Coast even, like are not like that. And it's still like mostly white. I know, and the suburbs around it are mostly white. So that was one big thing too with the differences. And even with that also, so I mentioned how we almost thought about moving here. So we've had family reunions in Colorado since the 1980s. So I've been to different ones since 2000, so I was 7 years old. And I think visiting, like I knew it was an outdoorsy place, but I didn't realize that it was very outdoorsy. I think I assumed it was like California where people have different interests. Like some people might like outdoors. Like there's many people in California who love the beach, but they also love like going out to eat or going bowling or mini golf or other activities. And so I assumed it was like that here, or amusement parks. Amusement parks are big in California, like going to Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm. And so I thought that was the case here, that people had diverse interests. I'd be able to find people who love going to amusement parks, who love going out to eat, getting boba, um, doing those types of activities, bowling, mini golfing, but then finding out that most people do outdoor stuff and like hiking or camping or
Yeah.
fitness. I think I
Yeah.
heard from somebody that fitness is number one in Colorado,
Oh, okay.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was like shocked by that and that difference too with it. That's what people come here for is doing outdoor activities. So that was like
Yeah.
another big difference that
Mm.
I noticed that I didn't realize until moving here, and especially nowadays, a lot of young people are moving here, the transplants for those reasons and everything.
Yeah. Before I moved here, some people told me that Colorado is one of the healthiest states in the US. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's nice. But it's true. Like, I think most people like hiking, outdoor stuff. Skiing is a big thing.
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. But for me, it's like ski is already half the year. Like, no.
Yeah.
So half year I have nothing to do. Not nothing to do, but like limited access to other things. And yeah, it is true. Like bowling is a lot more expensive, and other things I just don't really know. So I don't know. Maybe we should just ask the listeners if they're from here. Let us know what to do over here besides hiking.
Or camping or rock climbing.
Yeah, I know. And for me, it's like rock climbing or camping. It also costs a little bit more because we need to have all the gears, and I have to drive out and all that. So I just haven't got a chance to try. Hiking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also like I guess I'm not used to that big of a place, like the distance that we have to drive. So for a real hiking, like, I really go to the west side, I have to drive at least like 30 minutes to get to wherever I can hike. So that's something very new to me because in Taiwan it's so small. I can just probably ride a scooter for 15 minutes and then that's a hike.
Right. Yeah, I know in Claremont there's like hiking trails. I think like Fullerton has them too. So you can just drive up to those and then do them. And it's interesting how even the intensity is different. Like when you look at some the app for hiking in Colorado, like it'll say it's easy or moderate, but sometimes it's not actually that. And
it's probably difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Like versus California where it's like, okay, it's going to be easy or it's going to be moderate. So that's also that too.
Yeah, the levels of the difficulties are different.
Yes, definitely. They are.
Yeah. And I was just looking up on Google, like the demographics in Denver. So I don't really know about Colorado, but at least in Denver, 76% are white, 9% Black, other races 5%, Asian 3.77%. So let's just call it 4% are Asians. So that's why among 100 people, you only meet 4 Asians. And then you met me.
I know.
And the university is different. It's not a city itself because like students are clumped together and then we have more international students on campus. So I guess it's more likely that you meet international students. But outside of campus, probably not. Like I was just imagining like in Littleton, you probably don't meet that many diverse background people.
I agree. Yeah, especially like the church I used to go to is majority white. So
yeah. And here is so interesting because it doesn't even say Hispanic or Latinx.
Interesting. Because I thought that's a large population here, I heard.
I know. So I was just wondering maybe it was clumped to that white. I don't know. But for DPS, Denver Public School, I do know 1/3 of the students are Hispanic or Latinx, whatever you guys prefer.
And same in Aurora too.
Yeah. So I think in Broomfield as well, Northern California, not California, Colorado also. I think almost the whole Colorado is like 1/3 of the students, at least the kids, are Latinx, but I don't know about the adults.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I know in Castle Rock, like it's like 80% white. I believe in Claremont, I think it's like 60-70% white. So it's like a little less. But I noticed like for Claremont High, for example, when I looked at the demographics, it had a little more Latinx students than white students. So I was really, really surprised at that actually. So I don't know if that's changed over the years since I've been in school or what. So it's just interesting and everything.
Yeah, so I guess it's just like a different composition of people makes a different culture. And also, I think geographically, Colorado is very different from the beachy coastal environment in California. But then we're going to change gears. That's also a sentence I learned from you guys. Let's talk about making friends because since you're new here and then you've moved here for like 2.5 years. How do you make friends and how is it different?
Yeah, so an advice I got from a blogger I follow before moving was to say yes to invitations, to go to events. So like if you go to a church that has young adults and like a young adults ministry, like to go to their events, to say yes to any hangouts. Even like, because I'm more of like a one-on-one hangout person. So even like if you meet someone there, or if you're visiting churches, like when I was visiting churches, if I connected with someone who was like my age, I would ask for their phone number, to hang out and everything. So just being, might be scary, but just being brave and ask. The worst they can say is no and everything, to help make that connection and try to go on, I guess, first friend dates, they call them, and everything. So that's like one big thing, and saying, yeah, not to be afraid. Like, I know it could be easy when you're tired, and whether you're in school or not, if you're working full time, to be like, well, I don't feel like going out, or I just rather watch Netflix. But just to say yes to those invitations, like to hang out and everything, to connect with people, to help with that, to go out to eat with people afterwards if that's what they're doing. I know not every church does that, like in California, but just find those ways, or staying around after church. Like I'm trying to, right now with COVID, it's impossible, but I was trying to get better at that when I was attending church, to stay around after, to talk to people, to help with connections. And I would say like the differences too. So living on campus as an undergrad, when you're at a 4-year, I feel like it's just, there's a lot there. So it's kind of easy to connect with people and make friends. Like there's different clubs to join, campus ministries to join. And so when you're living on campus, you like join some of those things, and then you make connections, and make friends with those people. And so you might be hanging out afterwards, or like going somewhere to eat, or doing an activity like bowling, or even if there's like a free pizza or something like there was on my campus, sometimes you would like do that with them. Or like sometimes this is not everybody, of course, but I was fortunate where most of my roommates I became friends with and connected with. There's one roommate that I'm still friends with that we keep in contact. We were roommates for 2 years. So sometimes having like roommates who are friends is really great and helpful, and connecting with their friends. So also like asking friends to connect with their friends too and get their number is also a good thing. So yeah, it's just so easy to be like, oh, let's go hang out, eat the cafeteria together, or you run into the person at the cafeteria and then you talk and hang out, or let's have a movie night. And so it's just easier, with having those connections to do those things and to hang out, and everything. And versus grad school, I know this is not every school, but most grad schools don't have on-campus living. I know DU is adding it and everything, but most don't. And so you're commuting, whether it's really close or kind of far. And then with that, it feels like, because even when I visited a Christian university, it feels like that they cater to undergrad students, even at the Christian university, more so that I visited for grad school. And so I just feel like they just cater to undergrads. And then it could be hard if you're commuting to get involved too, because you might have your assistantship, your work, or internship. And so you might have to make time for that, or choose what to be involved in, and have boundaries with that too. And so it could be just hard and you're in one place usually. So it's just hard to connect with people as a whole on campus. And it's kind of like your cohort is like your friends, or the people you want to try to connect with and everything. And joining something's helpful too, or if you're a believer, to join a Christian ministry if they have it for grad students, or something too, if possible. I also feel like grad school, or being a grad student and being a young professional, are different. I learned sometimes when you talk to young professionals, it's hard to relate still because they're working full time and you're not. And so it can be hard for them to understand like what you're doing or how you're doing and everything. I know for me, I tried to make time as a grad student, like to communicate that I'm free to hang out, because there might be an assumption, oh, you're busy, like just let me know. So just be like, yeah, like let's make plans if possible to hang out next week. And so making sure to do that too. But sometimes, yeah, there's like that in between where it's like, well, they haven't been in grad school, so they don't know what it's like either, and everything. And it's kind of like a community college too, like, because I went to community college, and it's the same thing where people just come and go and commute, and there's not really connection too. So you kind of either have to make that, or if you're not living on campus, it's just harder to make that because you're driving also. So those are some differences that I would say with that too.
I was just thinking, like, I agree with you because even though we were in college in different countries, but I felt like in college, the gatherings or meeting people is more frequent, and we're always hang out in the same campus. I guess it's like the class hours are longer, and we have a lot of overlap between classes or clubs or even just like doing things together. It was easier to mingle. But yeah, for grad school, I don't really think it's the state or the countries. I guess it's just the focus. So people go to grad school to learn, and then after class, they are gone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot of people in grad school. They still join clubs or student groups. They probably, yeah, they put more focus on internships or work. I think a lot of schoolmates I met in our college, they work. So they're basically running in and out just for class time, and that was it. And I was just like, it's like before coming here, I never had to ask people's numbers or how I can keep in touch with them because we just come, we keep meeting each other and then we become friends naturally. But now, if I meet someone, just like yesterday, I met two cool girls. We had a great conversation. I had to ask their numbers, otherwise, I wouldn't know how to, keep in touch with them. And I was just like, that was a big step for me because it's not like I'm super needy, but I also had to ask, otherwise I just felt like, oh, these two cool people are gonna go away. And I don't know about you. Did you do that to like ask contact info in college?
I'm trying to remember. I think so. Yeah, I think I still, stick to text like, oh, like, do you want to meet the cafeteria? But I feel like it was easier because it's like, oh, like we're in this group or mutual friend.
Yeah.
Let's hang out and then get each other's numbers and everything. So it was much easier than, visiting a church or a group and being like, oh, like, I'm kind of this person. Can I get your number kind of thing and see what they say. I do think it is part of not being an undergrad where it can be difficult to connect to make friends. I haven't lived in California after undergrad really to compare, although my friend who moved here has, and so she can compare. But it does feel like the culture is different with connecting people. And from what I heard when I was in counseling and what my counselor heard from other people, that the relationships here feel really shallow to people. Which I've experienced too, and maybe just having that one interest. But I guess like I know people who lived on the East Coast. My roommate lived on the East Coast, and for her, in her experience, you would know where you stand with somebody. They would tell you if we're friends or not. And I feel like here, even with my roommate, like that's been not the case where like you don't know where you stand with someone. And for me, like I'm still working on it, but having to be like, oh, like, do we want to hang out again? Like, because I think the follow-up has been tricky because I don't want to be needy and everything. But I think waiting like a couple weeks maybe like for following up, but even asking like, just, I hate being assertive and be asking, oh, do you want to hang out again? And then few weeks, like, to see where people are at, if they really want to hang out or be friends or not too. So I feel like it's just hard to gauge that. I know my friend from California, and her experience, she feel like it was easier to be like, oh, are we friends kind of thing, versus in Colorado, like it's not the case as much. I think it's also the culture along with not being an undergrad anymore too, because I just like structure, knowing like, okay, to be direct, I want to know right away. I don't want to be ghosted and guess and then you are too busy or you're not interested in like being close friends or going deep at all. So
it's comforting to hear you say that because I thought it was an international student thing. Some of my friends and we talked about it. It's like we didn't know. So a lot of people, I think in Western language, they will be like, oh, we should get coffee sometime, we should catch up or hang out together. But my friends and I, we were never sure if they mean it or not.
Yeah.
But it's comforting to hear you say that you also don't know. I and by coincidence, I don't know how my therapist also told me that, because she was also not from here. She said that the people in Colorado are more reserved, so they don't want to intrude people's
Mhm.
privacy or life, and they kind of just wait, to see who is taking that initiative. So I think last conversation I had with my Taiwanese friends was like, how do we know if we really want to be friends or they want to meet us again? So then our conclusion was like, we can reach out to them. If maybe reach out a couple of times, we have no meeting
Mhm.
or whatever, and they don't come back with another date if they cannot make it happen during our proposal dates, then it's probably obvious that that sense is not mutual.
Yeah.
But if they come back to us and then we say sure we can meet, and then we actually made it happen, then it is a potential friendship over there. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to text, and not be afraid to ask and see what happens. I know from my experience, I know from everybody's experience, there's been instances where we were talking to somebody and then it seemed like we were being, we were hanging out and then never heard from them again either. So there's also that too. So it's just really interesting with all that and with relationships out here and everything too. But I know that's happened to both of us where we think we're connecting with the person and then we don't hear from them again, kind of too, which is interesting. And then we also noticed too, sometimes people cancel plans last minute.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think it hasn't happened to me as much, but I know it's happened to my roommate where like she had a couple people coming over a long time ago before COVID, and then they cancel like the last minute, like that they were busy kind of thing. Like it wasn't like an emergency or anything. And I don't know, like with California, but I just feel like when people make plans, it seemed to usually follow through or people would show up kind of thing, it seemed. I think I noticed too that's more individualized here. Maybe it's because I was part of a Christian ministry with it was called Epic with Asian American students, so it was very communal. I went to a church with mostly Asian Americans sometimes, and so we would go out to eat after, and so I was used to that. And so here I feel like it's very individualized where people kind of go home after church and do their own thing, and it's not really, oh, let's go get together after church too. So I also noticed that difference. Even at my church that wasn't Asian American, I feel like when we were younger, people would be like, oh, let's go out to eat after and everything and hang out. And I feel like that's not always a big thing here too, and it's very individualized and just be like, oh, I'm going home kind of thing too.
And I guess we're just, this is our experience. We're not just saying that every Coloradan is like that or every group is like that, but it's comforting to find people who experience the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember last time you said something about, the friendship is like how we should have the friendship talk or something like that.
Well,
Is
like
fine.
kind of like like where you're at in the friendship or
Yeah. Can you talk more about that?
I remember mentioning from another person I follow, her name is KB. She does heart convos where she mentions the different levels of friendship and to talk about like where you're at in those levels. And sometimes it's that, or sometimes, talking like expectations and talking about what your expectations are for each other, boundaries for each other. Or even like if there's an issue or conflict or different changing stages of life, to talk about that and what one can give versus the other, which for me, I'm like, it sounds like romantic relationships almost. Like you get to put in all that work and everything. It's scary, but I'm like, that's what prepares you for marriage and a romantic relationship. I do remember her. So the different levels real quick are like, there's a stranger where you might know their name. You may not know too much about them. There's the acquaintance where KB defines it as like maybe like if you're a mom, like you see that other mom for the after school program, you talk and everything, but it's not like you're really close friends. And then there's I believe it was compatriot, where like you and your friend have similar interests, like you might like a certain TV show or a certain musical or like bowling, but then you don't go deeper. You just have that interest. Then there's comrade, which I believe they're like really close friends, but you might talk about deep things, but you may not be super vulnerable with each other or be real with each other with what you're going through. And then there's that inner circle, which is like really small, your closest friends, where you like talk about deep things, you talk about how you're doing, being vulnerable in that way. And like you might call them and ask for prayer, different things, but those are like your closest friends. And of course, those friendships can change and they can move with those tiers, and to hold those with open hands, like you may not be best friends with those people forever kind of thing. And it's important to have like openness to new friends and who might become your close friend too, because seasons change. And so that's been helpful for me to understand too, and with expectations. But yeah, it's something like learning that friendships take work and intentionality, and we can only do so much and everything through our capacity, and who to invest in with those people also, and having conversations like that.
Yeah, I felt like it was important to define the friendship or the relationship that we're having with new friends. Just like what the talk, is like, where are we? What are we doing?
Yes.
I feel you're close, but do you feel the same towards me? And I think the first time I heard this thing is just like I felt awkward, because it's like friendship should be a natural thing, but in this sense, it's like we really need to pay attention and be intentional on, if I'm here and are you here? Are you before me, after me, or we are on the same page?
Right.
Yeah, and then it's like, that kind of I'm being shied out Asianness or the introvertness, right? It's just like, oh, do we really have to talk about that? What if they don't like me, or they're not on the same page, and they're like, so I regard them as really close friends, and then they're not? It's like, oh my God, I'm losing face, or I'm just, asking for shame, that kind of embarrassment in some ways. But yeah, I guess it's like, instead of guessing around or hoping other people will reach out to us, I feel like I can also reach out to them, and then we will know what's happening.
Yeah.
That's a very fine line, if I should reach out or they should reach out.
Right. Like, you don't want to do all the work, because I've done that before with someone, and where I was doing most of the work, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I used to have that thing. I'm like, well, in school, friendships seem to come naturally.
Yeah.
And so they have to in adulthood, but, we're not in school where, you're seeing like those people in high school or whatever, elementary school, or even undergrad, and it just comes naturally. It feels like it comes naturally. Like, it doesn't come like that, which I'm learning in adulthood. And you have to like put in the effort and initiate and everything. And like you said, which is something I need a reminder of, to like be like, oh, like, do we want to continue hanging out or not, and everything, or is it just like a one-time thing? And to like, I guess, define that, which is like weird to do, but yeah.
And it's interesting. So sometimes after a party or a gathering or event, we have a chat group. And I feel sometimes we're just waiting for a person to call a party for a meeting like that. But if no one is calling for that, it's just gonna, flow through. So it's very tricky, complicated in a way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What kind of people would you reach out or take the initiative?
Like, as in their personality,
or like when you meet those people, when you meet different people, right? And then you're like, okay, exchange in contact info. Who would those people be that for you to want to take the initiative to catch up with them?
So like, I think after seeing them, you're saying, or after hanging out?
Yeah.
I guess like if it seems like we're talking, there's not like not that you can't have silence, but like there's not like an awkward silence all the time where the conversation just keeps ending.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That you
Like
could
you're
just
trying to find a topic to talk about. Probably you're
yeah.
not reach out, but you will reach out to those people that you feel like you share a common interest with.
Yes, or like we're able to talk easily and go deep easily too and everything,
Yeah.
and talk about different things. And I know that takes time, but yeah, that just comes naturally when we talk and we have things to talk about and it doesn't just end and we're like, yeah, let's do this again. Not really kind of thing.
It's always in the silence, and then it's like we will figure it out as we go. And I was thinking one thing, I forgot what that was. I was just thinking, yes, my therapist was talking about, oh, they're almost like our mentor or something like that.
Yeah.
So we talk about loneliness today, and she reminded me with a very important thing is like sometimes it's not about us. Right now, COVID happens, and most people are social distancing. So it's not like how hard we try to make friends and then we don't succeed. It's just the environment and the circumstances don't allow us to do so.
Yeah, I feel like COVID's a whole different thing. That's been like a challenge to figure out and like who to reach out to and what people are comfortable with, what I'm comfortable with. And then it's not like California where you can just easily hang out outside all the time since it's colder now too and everything. So yeah, that's like been a challenge. And even like transitioning churches and just, there's not large group young adult right now where you can like meet people. And so trying to be like, okay, I'll do this small group and then this other one to try to meet people, it's really small because it's hard for people to get on Zoom with working all day and everything. So like that's been like difficult too. But some of the people that I have, like there's like a couple of people where I'm like, yeah, we've been in contact and I'm like, okay, can we talk on the phone or go for a walk even, whatever a person's comfortable with and also doing that too. But yeah, I feel like it's just like Zoom's not the same. Like I miss hanging out with people in person and everything. But that's like a whole different thing and how to connect with people and like figure out like all that and like what people are comfortable with too and everything. Is difficult. And we're so individualized in the United States in general.
Yeah.
Too.
I think I was talking to a friend yesterday, and then so he is in Taiwan, and then in Taiwan, everything is open up right now. So they have no restriction as such in here. So he was asking how the classes are going, and I'm like, classes are going, but it's just mute and video button or leave meeting button. So it's like, imagine like Sarah and you and I, we had a class right before COVID happens, right? And then we will be able to hang out after class, in between class, and then, share snacks or whatever. But like right now, everything is online. So then it's just mute yourself or turn off your video or just leave when the class is done. So there's no chit chat time at all. Because it's like yeah, it's like professor, us and in certain small groups, but we have to talk about course related stuff. We don't talk about life. And that's it.
I know, or it's like awkward because it's like, what do you say on Zoom? Or you're just so tired, you don't want to talk to anybody, or afterwards you're like, I just want to talk to you, I just want to leave.
Yeah. I just want to walk around in my home instead of sitting there and watching a video.
I know, I can't imagine working from home right now. That's one of the good things of working in retail is getting out and everything.
Yeah. I know. Well, working from home isn't that bad for me because it's I am not meeting anyone. I'm just doing filing and data entry, that kind of thing. So it was very flexible for me. But for class, I miss that engagement, interaction, or just the whole group of student, that kind of sense.
Yeah.
So I felt like on Zoom everything is, how do you call that? Fragmented.
Fragmented, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like from transition to transition and done. no wiggle room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine doing school right now.
Yeah, I
Online.
know. Yeah. So before we end, is there anything else you want to add or want to share with us?
I think just the last thing is I think it's just important. We need friends. We just can't rely on one relationship like a spouse, a significant other, a boyfriend, girlfriend cannot complete us. We need other friendships, and it's important to maintain those. I know it's a different topic for another time with to maintain friendships in different seasons, but to continue pursuing that and having those close friends too, and everything is just really important. And we need to be in community even during this time.
Yeah. And today I had a conclusion with my therapist. It's like, all right, I just figured it out. No one can fill that void in my heart. I should probably go to God.
There you go. Yes, only God can. God can first.
It's like, yeah, I have so many friends back home, but like the time difference and world difference, married, not married, single, not single, school, not school. So yeah, we're open for conversations. So listeners, if you have comments, questions, or, suggestions for us to make better friends across different states or countries, let us know. And also rate us or comment us on Apple Podcast. We're also available on Facebook and Instagram. So Sarah, if the listeners want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah. So my email, which I'm guessing could be written down too. I use Facebook, but email would be best to contact me. So I am Sara, Sara, all lowercase, .n as in Nicole, my middle name, .divine, DIVINE, @gmail.com.
Yay. So her email will be in the episode notes. If you are interested to reach out, feel free to check it. I'm not speaking English. Feel free to check that out. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for coming to the show, Sarah.
Thank you for having me, Payne. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Chai with Ping. If you think someone will benefit from this episode, don't forget to share with them. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you like my show, you can buy me a chai with small gifts. Details are in the episode notes. Till next time!